Forget everything you've seen in the movies. Forget Captain Jack Sparrow, the chests of sparkling treasure, and the noble rebellion against the crown. Let's get one thing straight. The life of a pirate during the Golden Age was, for the vast majority, a floating nightmare. It was a short, brutal, and filthy existence that ended in sickness, infection, or at the end of a hangman's rope. The romantic image of the free pirate is a lie. The reality was an abyss of desperation. So the real question isn't why they chose this life, but how on earth did they manage to survive it at all? The first thing that would have hit you, stepping onto a pirate ship, wasn't the Jolly Roger flag. It was the smell. An indescribable stench. A rancid cocktail of unwashed sweat, vomit, rotting bilge water, and decay. There were no bathrooms. The crew lived and slept in a cramped, sweltering space, their clothes stiff with grime, salt, and old blood. Parasites were constant companions. Lice, fleas, and bedbugs infested every hammock and every shirt. But the real terror was something you couldn't see. It was scurvy. The movies never show you this. They don't show you your gums turning black and spongy, your teeth falling out one by one. They don't show you old wounds spontaneously reopening on your skin. It was a constant, agonizing pain that turned strong men into trembling wrecks. Then there was dysentery, the bloody flux which could tear through a crew faster than a cannonball. And medicine? That was the job of the cook or the carpenter, whose main surgical tool was a saw. The only anesthetic was a heavy dose of rum before the blade hit the bone. Infection wasn't a risk, it was a certainty. And infection was a death sentence. And the food? Those scenes of pirates feasting on roasted pigs and tropical fruit are pure fantasy. For months on end, a pirate's diet was a monotonous insult to the human body. The main staple was hardtack. Imagine a biscuit made of flour and water, baked until it was as hard as a rock. And almost always it was infested. Sailors would tap it on the table in the dark, not to clean it, but to knock out the weevils and maggots living inside. The meat was salted beef or pork, preserved for months, sometimes years. When it was pulled from the barrel, it was often slimy, unnaturally colored, and had the texture of rotten leather. The water, stored in wooden casks, would quickly turn into a green, sludgy soup. It was so foul it had to be mixed with alcohol to make it drinkable. This is where grog comes from. It wasn't a drink for celebration. It was a way to mask the taste of rot. The freedom of the pirate life is the greatest myth of all. Most ships operated under a strict iron-clad code of conduct, and the punishments for breaking the rules were terrifyingly cruel. Fights were not elegant sword duels. They were brutal, dirty brawls with knives, axes, and pistols. If you started a fight, you were flogged. The cat-o'-nine-tails was a whip with pieces of metal and bone tied into its lashes, designed to rip the flesh from a man's back. A worse punishment was keelhauling, being tied to a rope and dragged under the ship's hull. Most drowned, but those who survived were shredded by the razor-sharp barnacles covering the keel. And then there was marooning, being left on a deserted island with a pistol and a single bullet. Not an act of mercy, but of psychological torture. Death was everywhere. A sudden storm that could splinter the ship in minutes. A fall from the rigging 100 feet above the deck. A simple cut from a rope that turned septic. A cannonball strike that sent a shower of deadly wooden splinters through the air. Most pirates never lived long enough to spend their treasure. They died young, and they died horribly. A floating prison of disease, starvation, and terror. That was the reality. There was no glory, there was no romance. There was only desperation. The next time you open a refrigerator to decide what to eat, or turn on the tap for a glass of clean water, or take a pill for a headache, think of them. Remember those men, for whom a maggot-free biscuit and a day without pain was an unimaginable luxury. History is not a fairy tale. It is a lesson in survival.